Good morning, everyone. Welcome to 1 Million Cups Fayetteville. So glad to have you today. Thank you so much for coming out and supporting local business. We have a fantastic presenter today. We have Mr. Johnny Crowder with Cope Notes. He's going to come and tell us a little bit about his business. So let us welcome Johnny. Johnny, it's all yours.
Thank you very much for having me. And I'm still I'll admit people. Is someone, Lori or Athena, are you guys admitting folks so I can, okay. I do that all the time. So good morning, everybody. My name is Johnny Crowder, and I am the founder and CEO of Cope Notes. I do not live in Fayetteville. I live down in Tampa, and I've done every 1 million cups that I can drive to. And now I am doing some that I can't drive to. So thank you all for having me. I'm going to do a screen share so you guys can see my deck. And I will also tell you, as I'm pulling that up, a little bit of background as to why on earth I work in the mental health space in the first place. So I grew up with a number of different mental health diagnoses, and I was in and out of treatment for basically my entire life. I couldn't figure out what I was going through or what was going to help me. And I've tried all different sorts of medications and styles of therapy and lots of different online resources that help with mental health. And I never really found something that like scratched that itch that really helped me progress on a daily basis, but was still a light lift, something that didn't require a ton of my time and money and energy. So I went to school for psychology and started studying the brain and things that could help it. And I started doing public advocacy about 10 or 11 years ago. So I'm very familiar with the mental health space. However, I am new-ish to tech. So I'm very thankful to be able to share this with you today. If you're wondering what Cope Notes is or what we do, it's literally right there in our logo, daily mental health support. That's exactly what we provide. And it's all via text message. Now, if you're not familiar with the mental health space, I actually don't think you need to be familiar with the space to understand the shortcomings, because all of us have a friend or family member, even ourselves, that have sought treatment before. So I'll just say this. There are people like me in the middle who, if you were to give me a list of mental health resources, I could give you a list of equal length as to why I didn't want to use them, right? I'm concerned about accessibility. I'm concerned about cost or my own privacy. I'm concerned about social stigma, like what other people think of me or what I think of myself. And then by the time I actually work up the courage to reach out to a provider and actually use a resource, which on average takes someone about 10 years between onset of symptoms and actually engaging with care. By the time somebody actually does work up the courage to try a resource, a lot of providers on the left say, sorry, buddy, we are underfunded, we are understaffed. I mean, the demand is through the roof. So you can either get in line and maybe we can help you in a few months when we work that line down, or you can get in the crisis line and clog that line up and stand in front of people who are in real immediate crisis. So as a result, the entire mental health care system is like backed up and clogged. And it's really expensive, both in terms of human capital and obviously finances, to respond and react to crises rather than intervening and preventing them altogether. So Cope Notes is all about prevention and intervention, whether or not you're living with a diagnosis. Now, we get this question a lot. People will ask, I went to the App Store and I couldn't find it. What's the app called? It's not an app. This always blows people's minds. It's just text messages. So there's nothing to download. There's no passwords. There's no software updates. You don't share your personal data with the App Store, the Google Play Store. But not only all of that, I think the 3 reasons why we chose plain old text messages over another app to have to download are engagement, preference, and equity. So on the engagement side, the odds of you actually engaging with an app notification are between 2 and 4%. So extremely unlikely that you're actually going to engage with that. Whereas SMS boasts a 99% open rate. So it's like no contest. Text is a much more effective way to communicate with people in the modern era. And you might think, yeah, that's true for youth, but what about adults? And I would say, Not so fast. Actually, 97% of American adults prefer texting to any other medium. So it's actually true across demographic, but the equity component is really important here. In the top right of the slide, you will see that 2.5 billion people can't access smartphone dependent apps because they use non-smart cellular devices. That's like a third of the world. And you might think that's more of a developing economy type of problem, but it's not. There's actually 36 million Americans that have non-smart cell phones. So that's 11% of the US population that is being completely forgotten by the digital behavioral health market, just because they're low income, just because they have compromised living situations, or they reside in underserved communities, and that just didn't sit right with us. We are really big on health equity and making sure that everyone can use it, even if they don't have the newest iPhone. Now, Cope Notes as a product, like I said on the first page, we provide daily mental health support via text message, but how we do it is really interesting. So all of the messages that we send, and you don't ask us to send them, we send them, they are written by peers with lived experience. So all of the messages are really short and casual and easy to read, and they're written by people with firsthand experience having gone through what they're writing about. And not only that, all the texts are written by peers, but then they are reviewed, edited, and approved by a panel of mental health professionals. So whether it's an exercise or a journaling prompt or a psychology fact, whatever it is that we send that day is written by peers, then reviewed by mental health professionals. And then in the top right, the brain training component, we use artificial randomization to deliver these messages at random times. So you never know when we will text you or what the text will say. And it's also worth noting that it's not like a spam text that goes out to, a whole big list, like an email or something. Everyone has their own unique text sequence with Cope Notes. So no two people ever get the same text at the same time. So it's a really unique experience to get a text message and think like, wow, I am the only person in the universe to receive this text message at this time. Like, what does it mean? How can I apply this to my life? And then you'll see the EMI phrase there, but I'll touch on that in the next slide. The digital journaling component is really cool too, because you can text back at any time, whether it's midnight, whether it's crack of dawn, or in the middle of the day on your lunch break. You can text back and speak freely and say whatever you want, whenever you want, and use that text thread as a digital journal to vent and speak freely. And that improves your emotional IQ, your emotional independence, and the accuracy of your self-report, which is like a primary determinant for whether or not you will need crisis resources. But beyond everything I just said, the reason why people feel comfortable saying stuff about their spouse or their employer or whatever in that text thread and being honest and truthful is because on the bottom left, you will see Cope Notes is 100% anonymous and confidential. So all of you could sign up right now and I wouldn't know that you did. We don't collect names or addresses, anything like that, because we figured the best way to protect your information is to not collect it in the first place. The neuroscience slide is hard for me to keep down to like 1 minute. I will do my best. I went to school for psychology and I literally gave a TED talk about the neuroscience behind Cope Notes. I am such a nerd when it comes to this stuff, so I'll try to keep it short and sweet. And if you have questions, we can talk about it during Q&A. Essentially, your brain doesn't actually care whether a thought pattern is positive or negative, whether it's healthy or unhealthy. Your brain's primary objective is to get you through life while conserving as many calories as possible. So your brain is going to default to the easiest thought to think, even if it's not a healthy one. It's just a survival mechanism. So this is how thought patterns are formed. The brain kind of thinks a thought, and then it thinks it again and thinks it again because it becomes easy and familiar. So what Cope Notes is doing is delivering something called ecological momentary interventions, or EMIs, these simple text messages that interrupt negative thought patterns and provide a catalyst for positive thoughts, so that over time your brain learns to think in healthier patterns. Your brain is, we call it We jokingly call it brain surgery without the scalpel, because your brain is physically changing over time. It's forming physical new neural pathways associated with positive thought, just with one randomly timed intervention, surprising the brain every day. So I tried to keep that to a minute. Super fascinating subject. We have 3 different types of subscriptions. We have personal subscriptions. So just like if I wanted to sign up or if you wanted to sign up, and I will mention again, this is not for people with any specific diagnosis. We have people like me who are living with multiple diagnoses who rely on this on a daily basis. We also serve literally thousands of people who never have been diagnosed with anything. They just want to take really good care of their mental and emotional health. We have gift and family subscriptions. So that's like if I wanted to buy one for my mom, or if my mom wanted to buy one for our whole family, so that we build like a culture and conversation around mental health. And then what we've been, probably 80% of our revenue comes from the enterprise level subscription. So this is our partnerships with community organizations, schools, businesses, even governments like city and local governments we've been working a lot with, hospitals, insurance, you name it. And really our focus for pricing was we wanted to be really competitively priced, because there are such expensive resources out there. And our goal for pricing was to make a full year of daily support through Cope Notes cost less than 1 therapy session. So there are other digital health vendors out there who will charge $260 a month, $340 a month, $425 a month. We've seen these prices all over the internet, and we wanted to be right around $10 a month, regardless of your preferences. So we really wanted to be affordable so that we could serve these larger groups. And this is the last page, and then we'll go to Q&A. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip the testimonials, but on our website, if you go to copenotes.com, there's a reviews tab in the main navigation, and you can click that and scroll through. We have made like breathtaking impact on people all over the world. It's super, super moving. Right now, we have users in 94 countries. We have about 21,000 users, and we've sent over 1 million text messages with these people, like making huge impacts on their lives. So really, really moving. I wish we had time to get into all of them, but if you go to our website, you can read them. And on the bottom, you'll see some of our partners. We have over 100 enterprise level partners. Some of them you might recognize, like Mental Health America and the state of New York, some pretty recognizable names. And then others are like smaller local organizations like the Crisis Center here in Tampa Bay. And the last piece, this is kind of our mic drop, like end of presentation statistic that we like to share. We've collected feedback forms from literally thousands of subscribers, asking them what they liked, what they didn't like, what helps, what doesn't help, so we can make the product better. And believe it or not, this is totally to my surprise, 86% of users report improved mental health within 30 days. If you're not familiar with the mental health space, that is a staggering success metric. I did not expect anything close to that. We are doing research with USF Health that will have like all of the white papers published in scientific journals type of stuff, but this is all self-reported from thousands of users all over the world. So I see that we're kind of around the time that I should stop my presentation. So what I'm going to do is I'll put up this contact slide. It has our website and our email if you need to get in touch with us, and then we can do Q&A with this slide up if y'all are cool with it.
So Johnny, you mentioned competitive pricing. So what about your competitors? Do you have lots of competition, especially in the App Store and that sort of thing? And how do you differentiate yourself from your competition?
Awesome question. We are actually a sole source provider, which means we're the only service that does what we do. However, we do have indirect competitors, right? Like you have Talkspace, you have BetterHelp, you have Calm and Headspace, but these other resources, a lot of them offer guided meditation or chat with a therapist, which are different services. Like that's not what we provide. And that's kind of actually on the homepage of our website. It says, this is not a therapy app. this is not a counseling session. Like, it's very, very clear about this is a brain training resource. And we also try to make it clear that we are one of the only anonymous resources on the market. Like, if you're going to sign up for Talkspace or BetterHelp or anything like that, you do have to enter personal information. And that, I don't know what they do with information, but I do know that they collect it. I do know that they're significantly more expensive. And I think one of the main things that Cope Notes talks about is not only are we built for people with or without diagnoses, which means that we can serve people who like wouldn't want to go to therapy, or don't feel like they have a need to go to therapy. We also focus a lot on the fact that we are proactive. Like, if you're going to use another digital behavioral health resource, you make a conscious decision to like log into an app. And how many of us on this call have downloaded apps and not used them on a regular basis? So we've been, for years, the behavioral health market has been putting the onus on the individual to choose to use a resource. But if you bought me the most helpful book that would change my whole life, and I left it on my nightstand and never opened it, it wouldn't do anything for me. So Cope Notes' whole mentality is we're not going to wait for you to feel like getting better. If you can make one decision to subscribe, we will be there for you on the days that you feel fired up and ready to grow. And we will also reach out to you on days when you don't have the motivation to do it yourself.
And so we have a question in the chat. Christina she says that this is amazing because the mental health community is struggling every day. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And do you have any new ideas to better help the community?
Yeah, so hold on, two questions. In answer to the second question, I have too many ideas. That's how this even started, was I had an idea that I couldn't get anybody else to make, so I made it myself. Our product roadmap is wild. We have tons of ideas about like new ways to innovate and make Cope Notes like a better and better product, literally quarter over quarter in perpetuity. Like, Cope Notes is going to grow into, and I do want to make clear, the 5-year question, I have no interest in being like a full suite, one-stop shop mental health resource where you can like get your prescriptions and chat with a therapist and meet with, like, I have so many other people do those things well. I have no interest in doing that. Where I see Cope Notes' strength is right now we do something that literally no other vendor does. We automate engagement, follow-up, intervention, prevention, and these things are either currently run by like these broken AI chatbots that have no idea how to piece together sentences that feel real, or individual people are tasked with sending the messages, so it won't scale. So what Cope Notes does is so applicable to like this top of funnel in the mental health industry that I would say, and I feel weird saying industry, but it in many ways is, where I see Cope Notes in 5 years is not becoming that like overarching, like we're going to be Walmart Health or something. I do not want to be that. What I want to be is the best mental health texting resource on the planet. That's what I want to be. So I want to be a tool in the toolkit of insurance companies and employers for employee wellness, schools for student wellness. Like, I want to be that vendor that can fill gaps for alumni programming with rehab centers. Like, I want to be that go-to resource rather than being everything to everyone.
At this point, how receptive has the market been toward Cope Notes?
I am frankly surprised at how explosive the growth has been recently. So for the first year, we got maybe 100 users, and it was challenging, but also we're bootstrapped, right? Like, we don't have VC funding. So I was like leaving flyers at gas stations and stuff and telling people about it. And then the second year, I believe we got a couple thousand users. And then now we're right around 3.5 years, and we have 21,000 users. So it's been kind of like exponential word of mouth. I will say though, that at first, when we were reaching out to these enterprise partners, they would say, oh no, we already have like a school counselor or something. And I would say, no, 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 this is like not a counselor. This is something that can touch, um, I don't know, 4,000 lives at your school on a daily basis. And no school counselor can do that. So it was difficult at first to articulate that the main benefit of Cope Notes was like the set it and forget it aspect for those buyers, like those larger enterprise buyers. But now I think we are getting to a point where people are understanding the value. It's just challenging to explain, because we are a sole source provider. It's tough to communicate to people like this is a lot more efficient than what you're doing. I mean, imagine if someone's used to riding horses forever and someone says, check out this Model T. And you're like, oh, it's loud and clunky. And I don't think that will catch on. You know, for the first little bit, it takes some adjustment. This is the quietest Q&A I've ever had.
So how are you marketing Cope Notes? I mean, how do people find out about Cope Notes? I've never heard of it. I mean, are you going around to schools and things? What are you doing to let people know that you exist?
So I mean, obviously, like I mentioned, we are bootstrapped, so we don't have tons of money for like advertising and marketing. However, there are a few things that I think I can thank for our growth. The first is press, like local press, just random like local newspapers and local news channels doing like short features, just saying like, hey, mental health is really important. Here's a resource that you might not have heard of, and doing like a spotlight on a new resource for community mental health. I think that has been massive, just in terms of awareness and getting the word out. Another thing that has helped is just sheer word of mouth. Like Cope Notes is a very sticky product. Like when people use it for a week, they're like, oh shoot, this is kind of cool. You know who would like this? My sister. And you buy a subscription for your sister, and then your sister uses it and is like, oh man, my work should know about this because all of my coworkers should get to use this. So it's been kind of like a network effect as our user base has grown. And one other thing I'll say that has helped is I've been doing mental health advocacy for 11 years. So I will speak at conferences and schools and fundraisers and, you know, you name it. I fly all over the place to give keynotes about mental health. So I think that, like if I go speak at a conference and they let me set up a Cope Notes table there, I don't give a talk about Cope Notes, but I still get to have a table at the conference. And I think stuff like that has really helped spread the word on a budget, if you will, because we can't throw like $500,000 at Facebook ads, you know? I did want to say, while it's deathly quiet in here, I wanted to leave a link to our website. And we do have at the very top of our web, oh, I should leave my, if you need to contact me directly, that's my email. And at the top of our website, there is a banner that will drop down that says like, you know, type in your phone number and get a week free. It really is no strings attached. So a lot of people are like, well, yeah, is it going to charge me or are you going to spam me? No, we like do not do that. So if you want to like see what Cope Notes is, try it for a week if you're interested in checking it out for yourself or trying it out like in advance of giving somebody a gift subscription to see what it's like. You really can use the week trial for free, and it says no strings attached. Like we don't need your name or your credit card, anything like that. And I did see a question in the chat that just popped up.
Yep. Christina wants to know, how long did it take for you to start Cope Notes? Once you came up with the innovative idea, how long did it take for you to begin?
So The answer is not super clear cut because I will be clear with you. I never wanted to start a healthcare technology startup. That has never been on my like to-do list. I wanted to be a rock star my entire life. I literally played a show last night and I'm playing a show tonight. Like music has always been my heart. Where mental health intersected with music was I was on tour and doing peer support through NAMI. So I was like leading peer support sessions in different cities, like group peer support and having conversations with people at concerts. And through that, I started something called Not a Therapist, which was a digital peer support resource. And I started that in 2017, early 2017. And I ran that for about a year. And it was basically like chat with a peer. So it was like you could choose Facebook or Skype or text message or whatever you wanted, whatever medium you wanted, and set an appointment. And it was all free, all volunteer based. And I couldn't find people to work for free. So of course it couldn't scale. And I ran that for about a year. And Cope Notes was the, I guess we could call it the beta version of Not a Therapist, because I ran myself into the ground starting Not a Therapist. I was working 50 hours a week in an ad agency for my job. And then I was volunteering through Not a Therapist, like 30 or 40 hours a week, doing sessions and back end. And I couldn't find people to help me. So I launched Cope Notes about a year after I launched Not a Therapist. So if you think about it like that, I ran a beta version of Cope Notes for about a year, but it wasn't the same product. I just realized all of the inefficiencies of peer support while running that first product, and then knew I had to make something new. So the nuanced answer is it took about a year of me figuring out all of the parts of my original idea that wouldn't work to rebrand and make a new version.
Do we have any questions for Johnny?
I don't know if anybody is awake right now. All the videos are off.
I'm thinking we need coffee.
Yeah, I've never done a presentation where so many of the videos were off. I'm wondering if people are folding their laundry or petting their dogs, or I am here and ready to chat. And I'm also, while it's quiet, I'm going to put a link to my LinkedIn in the chat, which I only started doing recently for 1 Million Cups, because a lot of people said, like, what if I have a question later, or if I have an idea that comes to me later? So definitely feel free to reach out.
Yeah, Johnny, I think one of the problems here is that I'm used to getting people who come in, upstart businesses and stuff like that, are trying to solve some problems and things. And I almost feel like a customer right now. And so I'm not really sure how I'm supposed to respond. And so I guess the question, I know that Lori's going to get to this later as to what we can do for you. But I guess the question I have to ask is, where do you see a need to, where you're talking to business peers, where do you see your need so that we can actually not look at this as customers, but as peer review?
Yeah, so I am happy to touch on that. If that's what everybody was waiting for, is for me to ask them a question. I just have never done it like that before, but we can totally do that. One of the questions that I had asked about was, or that I had written down to talk about with you guys, was enterprise billing. So if there are any like pricing people, I would love to hear from you. Basically what we've run into during COVID, we had a pretty major pivot when we went into COVID, and then we might be facing a pretty major pivot coming out of COVID due to billing. So as you could expect, we normally bill on a subscription basis. So you pay like once a month, or if you do an annual plan, once a year, and it's like a recurring, like auto renew type of thing, like any other subscription. And when COVID hit, we lost a ton of our enterprise level customers because they said, we don't know what our balance sheet is going to look like. We don't know what, like how much money is coming in and out of our business. So a lot of enterprise level customers canceled all subscriptions because they didn't want to make a commitment to continue paying if they didn't know what their revenue would look like. So we went to those customers and we're like, how can we continue working with you, even if it's not on a subscription basis? So the solution that we collaboratively came up with was to bill them like a purchase order, basically. so they could prepay a fixed amount. Like they might say, we want to buy 100 subscriptions. We'll write you a paper check, like it's 1990, and we'll send you that. You can give us the exact amount of subscriptions that we paid for. We can distribute them at our own pace, and you never bill us again. So that way we can choose to buy in chunks with these one-time payments rather than a subscription. And what that did for the company is it put us into more of like a cash or product basis style of billing rather than traditional subscriptions, which makes financial forecasting virtually impossible, right? Like makes it really hard to know how much money is coming in the next month to plan for hires and stuff. And then when, like, God willing, we are coming out of COVID now. And I have seen some clients say, I want to continue doing purchase order style because we don't want to do subscriptions yet. Some clients are saying, we wish you would just bill us like a fixed amount per month. So not per subscription. They're saying, like, if you could just say it's going to be $5,000 a month for up to X subscriptions, and we distribute however many we want. That way we don't have to worry about how many licenses we have. So there's some people who want purchase order, some people who want a fixed amount per month, and some people who want per subscription per month. So they want to do it like per unit. And what I'm trying to do is not overcomplicate our billing page. So it doesn't just look like, I don't want to confuse customers. I want to make it really easy. So I was wondering if anybody has experienced that kind of thing where different buyer personas want to be billed in different ways, and how you would suggest kind of making everyone happy enough to still be able to close the contract and serve them without making like a really nuanced and confusing billing structure that might turn away some business.
Okay, I think that's something we could work with then, and that certainly opens up the door to as to why we're here. I guess have you looked at other sites and how they do their billing, or do you have access to that?
Yeah, so the most common thing that people do is it's like the fixed amount per month. So like the $5,000 per month for up to X licenses. However, when you work with like nonprofits, for example, or governments, a lot of them have like very specific billing requirements where they can only bill as purchase order, or they can only bill as per unit per month. And I haven't seen any rhyme or reason. Like literally 2 neighboring counties could have 2 different billing policies.
And is there a problem with you having 2 different billing policies?
So not necessarily, because we can make it work on the back end. My concern is really more with the way we present our pricing. Like, should we really go to everybody and say, how do you want to be billed? And then we'll quote you in the style, because then it makes it tough to actually list pricing on our website without just saying call us, you know?
Well, I think with dealing with personal subscriptions, that's the way to go. But when you say 80% of your business is corporate,
Correct.
Or government, what I'm thinking is that keep it really simple on the individual basis by subscription, because that's the standard today. But do you actually negotiate these things with the organizations in person, or is this done online?
We meet with all, so that's actually a great question, because right now we meet with everybody like via Zoom to like discuss the terms and everything. But at a certain point, it would be great if like deals smaller than $10,000 could like check themselves out on the website without like an account manager working with them and stuff. So I would like to automate it to an extent, but right now it's all like white glove hand holding type stuff.
Yeah, and I would think that the size of the account that you're talking about and the number of dollars that you're talking about is that it just may be necessary to do that. And or to even have a single salesperson coming in there being able to deal with all of that, rather than say some administrative person who's got other things to be more concerned about. Seems to me that if you've got somebody actively out there pursuing, that you could actually pay for them with the additional business they're bringing in, and somebody who's savvy enough to be able to negotiate these things.
So I guess something that I should share, because I was working on this yesterday, someone was like, can you send me the pricing packages? And I was like, packages? It like depends on so many things, like what are the billing requirements? When is your fiscal year? Like these are important questions. And so I responded and said to the person that I was communicating with, she was at a government. And I was like, it'd be really great if we could hop on like a 15-minute call to talk about like your specific needs and how we can build a custom quote for you. And she was like, I don't have time for a call. Just send me quotes because my boss asked me to reach out to you for pricing. And I'm like, oh,
It's a new age, isn't it?
I don't want to like twist her arm and be like, no, I need to meet with your boss. And I wish I could send her like just a PDF that's like, here, boom, 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 like bronze, silver, gold. But this also might be a product where it's like, it really is necessary for me to understand your billing policies at your municipality, you know?
I think you could offer two options and also list there that, you know, we can create custom programming for you. And obviously that would infer that we need to discuss it.
Yeah.
And I would keep it that simple. But if you've got two optional ways to satisfy either a purchase order or a fixed cost situation, and I can understand both of them actually. So
you just gave me the best idea, I think. I mean, it seems like a great idea up top.
of course I did. Can I go now?
No. So let me know what you think about this, Ken. What do you think about having, instead of actual prices on our website, like, you know, $5,000, $10,000, $50,000? What if it was like purchase order, subscription, custom? So
I would not hold time out. I wouldn't put a price on your website at all. I thought you were actually sending this to interested parties. I would, as far as a group thing goes, do not put a price. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Offer optional packages. I wouldn't list a price on there for such large contracts.
Yeah.
That's dangerous, I think.
I shouldn't have said website. I meant like if I were going to send them pricing packages,
Yeah.
What I could do is just send them, here would be your price for, if it's a purchase order, here's your price for what the heck was the second one? Subscription, and then here's your price for, you know.
You see, I would leave it as vague as possible and have a salesperson follow up on that and actually negotiate it is what I would do. Because you're taking the wind out of the sails of somebody who's going to negotiate this by already putting your pricing up there. Yeah, I think on such high-end stuff, you got to really be careful. It's not like buying a BMW and everybody knows what the deal is. And not only that, but you expose yourself to competition who's watching your pricing as well. If anything's published at all in terms of pricing, and they can just undercut you pretty easily, especially, you know, when you're talking about a volume type subscription service.
Yeah.
That's just my thought on it. But no, I just honestly think if you get the hook by offering, you know, saying we have options here and we are able to negotiate things for specific issues that you're dealing with in a better way than that. But I honestly think that when you're talking about the numbers you're talking about, personal selling is the way to go on this. That's my opinion on it. So
my brain is like twirling. You have me thinking a lot of stuff, but that I super appreciate your opinion. That's so helpful.
Johnny, I agree with Ken. You know, there are a lot of variables right now, especially with COVID and how you approach companies from a business aspect or from that perspective. I think the personal approach is going to be more sustainable, or it's going to, you know, keep repeat customers and developing those relationships. You know, I think that's very, very, very important. And it's a segue into future business as well. So I think Ken's approach is spot on when it comes to pricing, you know, and just, you know, customization. I mean, we're living, you know, these are different times. It's not like, you know, you can just, you know, throw something out there and they're going to bite it. Now, I would much rather deal with, you know, someone who's willing to negotiate or be more personable about the business itself, you know, so that we can retain or create some type of sustainability there. So, Ken, those were really good points.
And I like the idea of having different packages. So multiple packages like bronze, gold, silver, that sort of thing that would increase with price as well too, John.
So one thing that I've worked on before, I can actually put it in the chat if you guys would want to look. So this is something that I was working on yesterday, where I was working on those like packages. I'm just literally going to share my unfinished notes. So please be patient with me.
Yeah, because people like choices, or
Yeah.
I do. You can't give them too many choices, especially for the indecisive, but they like choices.
So what I'm about to put in the chat is, if it'll let me paste it, come on. Oh, it might be too long of a, oh, I can do a screen share, come on. So here's what I was working on yesterday. And this is for a partner that we are working with on potential pilots. So you can see this is more like traditional, like lump sum for the year. And it not only tells you how many licenses you can activate, but it also tells you like all of the other things that you get with it. So like as you go up in packages, and these are for municipalities, so their budgets are like millions and millions and millions of dollars. So these are relatively affordable compared to like what they also might use this budget for. And you'll see that the way that this is represented is not like you get 1,000 licenses. It is however many you use up to 1,000 during that year. So this is how traditional software as a service can be billed at enterprise level, but it also outlines, like, imagine just for a moment, if it just said this, like silver, 500 licenses, and you're like, I don't know how I feel about that. But then when you see like all of the enterprise level support and stuff that we do to like provide value to the client, I feel like as a client, you're like, oh, I understand that I'm not just buying the licenses, I am buying like full suite support and like a true mental health partner. And imparting that value to the buyer is important, so they don't think that we're just gonna like dip out on them. But these are packages, but not every municipality will fall into one of these. So they would have to like jump. Like if you have, let's say you have 325 employees, you would either have to pick this one or this one. And so many people have said, can you write a quote for like 427 or whatever? So I think maybe that's where Ken is talking about, like for those types of clients who say, I don't fall into a bucket, then we can work on a custom quote, you know? Lori, were those buckets kind of what you had in mind for the pricing structure, or were you talking about something else?
The buckets were exactly what I was talking about.
I'm still trying to figure out how I would want to structure that. But those are my notes. Like I'm literally in the middle of working on them right now.
I think you're headed in the right direction. Like Ken said earlier, you just want to be careful about throwing pricing around, and you know, you also need to factor in your wiggle room within those packages, whether or not there would be in a wiggle room, just in case they ask for something, you know, customized. You know, I would just really be careful about the pricing and you know, putting that out there.
Yeah, I have a bad habit of, you know, Not a Therapist was free and it failed because it was free. Like I wasn't thinking about profit margins. I wasn't thinking about sustainability. I was like, I just want to help people, which is great, but like it's not sustainable. So I need the hard part for here is like, in my experience, almost whatever price I go to somebody with, they say, well, yeah, but you could do a little something extra for me. And it like almost no matter what the price is, even if it's really low. So I need to like think about setting the base price for the packages high enough so that if somebody says, well, are you kidding me? Like I've known you for so long and we have a standing relationship, and if I can shave off like $5,000 to make them happy, that it also doesn't cut too deep into our margins.
Yeah, I do believe that in the near future, the demand for, mental health products it's going to be skyrocket. And I don't know if you're looking into these sectors, but EAPs, employee assistance programs, as a package, and how you kind of segue or get into that market would be huge. But then again, you have to package your product in such a way that it would be beneficial for them to include it. And where those funds come from, I mean, I don't know, but having your product packaged well enough to be able to customize it would be a huge help to the company. Like the young lady, hey, my boss don't have time to review. I mean, that's open door. Let me send them a number and let me have that information readily available.
Yeah.
And this is what it is. That's huge. So as you move forward and package the pricing and things like that, there's so many variables that you really need to pay attention to, because this is this tech stuff, and it's easy for others to come in and undercut your idea. The question: have you patented this? Have you done any of that work?
So I met with a couple IP attorneys, actually several times over the course of building the company, to check with them on what they thought was best.
Uh-huh.
And they said we are actually safer doing trade secret right now than patenting, because we wrote all of our own code, and our scheduler and our algorithm for how we deliver text messages is all custom. So he's like, if you patent that, another company could just copy it and then out litigate you because they have more money. So they're like, until you have enough money, keep it trade secret. And then when you do have that kind of money, then you can look back.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to make sure you were getting some type of advice on that. I invest in a lot of companies that undercut other tech companies, like this. So, you just want to be careful with that.
Definitely. And I also wanted to mention, Corey, I was talking to when you were talking about the EAP stuff, I talked to a few different, I guess, like actuaries that work with those EAPs. And so what they would need our billing to be is wild. Like right now we're $10 a month for an individual user. And they're like, oh, for you to be included in the EAP, we need you to get down to like $1 a month or $2 a month. And I'm like, I don't know how we'd be able to run a business. And then here's what they say, Corey, they go, no. You just bet on low enrollment and hope that not everybody uses it. So right now, Cope Notes, so the average EAP program has an average enrollment of 4.5%, so very low enrollment. Cope Notes has an average enrollment of 53% in an employer group. So way more people use it than an EAP. So now these EAPs are saying bill like $1 PEPM and then cross your fingers that not a lot of people use it. And I'm like, well, that feels like it decentivizes me encouraging people to use the product. So it's like, I don't want to go bankrupt serving a ton of people, but these deals, I don't know if I can like put a break point in, like, okay, it's $1 PEPM up to like 15% enrollment. And then it becomes this price or something. I don't know.
And that's been my experience. They want you to write a blank check, tell me this, and then, whoever comes, serve them. And that's where it gets a little sticky. So, yeah, you really need to consider that as well. Especially when you're dealing with EAPs, because, obviously the way they structure their budget for EAP is different. So they're trying to make sure that they cover their costs, but they're getting it at a cheaper rate. But, in the process, they're undercutting you as well. So you just want to be careful with that. But, to have that, as an incentive for the employees is huge. I mean, your product is amazing. And I think as we move forward and come out of COVID, you're going to see that there's a strong need for your product, and more companies are going to start reaching out, and I think that you should be in a position, to better serve them, by going ahead and addressing these issues now. Because it's coming. I can tell you it's coming.
A mentor told me I told him I felt like I was too early because I started a telemental health resource 5 years ago. And the market was like, who would do that? You could just go to a therapist's office. I'm like, why on earth would you do that? And then, so I was complaining that I felt like I was too early. And he said, 5 years too early is what we call right on time, because you get in the market, you learn what people like and don't like, and you make all your mistakes while no one's really looking at you, so that by the time the need is great, you can be there. So I'm praying that we can be a greater asset into next year, and that our timing will have benefited us, because we have made a lot of mistakes and learned a lot of lessons. And I hope that they've prepared us for what's to come.
I wish you all the best.
Thank you a ton.
Sarah has a question in the chat box. She wants to know, was there a big difference in the money that you spent between Not a Therapist and Cope Notes?
So a massive difference. So for Not a Therapist, I didn't have any freaking money. I just didn't. So everything I used was like, and actually it was name your price, and everybody named the price $0, and I don't blame them for doing that. So I'm Not a Therapist, I actually spent a ton of time. I didn't spend much money at all, which I hope maybe is kind of empowering to anybody who's like about to launch something. I spent almost no money starting Cope Notes. It just took not Cope Notes, Not a Therapist. It just took an incredible amount of time. And even in the first year of Cope Notes, we did like $7,000 or $8,000 in revenue for the entire year. So it was like virtually no revenue. And every single dollar we got back, I'm like, can we buy a plugin that will keep me from making this mistake on our website? And can we have help from this person, and like hiring contractors for like a couple $100 here and there to fix things that I messed up. So I am a firm believer in the fact that you can start something with a little money. And in fact, I have friends who have done like big VC raises, and they will raise like a couple $1 million before they have a product. And the mistakes they make are very expensive. They're like, wow, we invested $90,000 into this initiative that it looks like we're not going to do. But for Cope Notes, and like early Cope Notes and early Not a Therapist, there's something about being scrappy and having to figure it out without a big budget that you learn a lot quickly, and you learn a lot without having to spend a lot. So I'm not sure if you were asking about a specific idea. Your idea might, like if it's manufacturing stuff, that might be complicated. But if you have like a non-tangible, like a digital idea, I really encourage you to just try starting it, even if you think you don't have quite enough money, because people are very quick to tell you what they like and don't like. And that's almost all you need to know in your first year of building a product.
Thank you very, very much, Johnny. We're almost out of time, so I'm going to take the last question. What can this community do for you? How can we help you?
So I would say the other thing, what y'all missed was right before everyone signed in, Lori was like, do you have 3 things to ask everybody? And I was like, shoot, I only wanted to ask about pricing. But the other thing that I thought about real quick for the what the community can do for you, right now, like one of the greatest fruits from 1 million cups that we've ever seen from presentations is every single 1 million cups we've ever done, inevitably at the end of the presentation or later that day, I get an email from someone who says, hey, I saw your 1 million cups thing. Have you ever spoken with Keith at this hospital, or the director of wellness at this company, or whatever? And those connections, I had a mentor tell me, I think he was exaggerating, but he said, if anyone ever offers you $1 million check or an email introduction to someone you haven't met, take the email introduction, because you never know where it will lead. So if you have $1 million check, please send it to me. That's awesome. But if assuming that you don't, and you just know somebody that I should have already connected with about this, a community organization that we can partner with, or even like a local press outlet where you're like, yeah, I bet my local news station would do a 2-minute feature on a resource that our community doesn't know. Like that kind of stuff is the only way that Cope Notes has grown. So really, there's 23 people on this call besides myself right now. So my ask is, in an ideal world, I will get 23 emails today that say, hey, I know someone that you should meet. Do you mind saying hello? Because even if none of them work out, I learned so much from those conversations. And that's what shapes our project and our go-to-market.
So Johnny, we have a huge, we're a huge military town here in Fayetteville. Have you ever thought about like reaching out to like our veterans and things, our veterans center? So I think your product would be very beneficial to them. Nonetheless, we're almost out of time. We will talk as soon as everyone leaves. I've got a couple of suggestions I'd like to give you. I really appreciate it. Would love to invite you to come back and let us know how Cope Notes is doing. When you figure out how to retrain the brain to maximize calories instead of minimize them, please let me know. So nonetheless, we really appreciate it. It's been fantastic. For all of our guests today, we won't be meeting next week. As you know, Thanksgiving is almost here. And so, but we will return on December 1st. We have a speaker. We have Vladimir from Cotto that's going to come and tell us a little bit about their business. So I hope to see you then. You guys have a fantastic day. See you in 2 weeks.